Well, what did it mean? It meant that it was some kind of grand um, validation for people who don't follow music super, super, super closely. I think it means that it's a trophy you can kind of have on your wall. Like you have reached a certain level of I don't even want to say success, more like awareness that the mainstream has of you. Um, it was nice to be at the nucleus of a lot of people's pride too, because obviously nothing happens in a vacuum, and it's been a lot of support from friends and family and bandmates and
No kidding. The,
along
the
the way.
the mainstream thing. I mean, it seems to me that we're going to dive into this, but you've got your own world going on. You are a force, and I don't get the sense that it matters to you whether or not the mainstream embraces you. Why does a Grammy matter in that regard? Or is that fair to say
No,
even?
no, no. To I mean, we could talk about it, what it means on like an emotional level, like an intrinsic
Yeah, what does
level.
it mean to you?
Um, well, that's a really tricky question because part of the answer is nothing, and then another part of the answer is a whole lot. I mean, it's something that if I was when I was a kid, 10, 12 years old, learning how to play guitar and idolizing musicians and wanting to be in the game, I mean, it's definitely something that I wish I could tell my young self, like, oh, well, things will be all right. You'll have a Grammy, you'll win a Grammy, and you'll get to live your dream. So, it's just another what is it? It's like another talisman of the fact that I am in fact getting to live my dream,
Yeah,
which is great.
no kidding. Um, you mentioned being 10 or 12 years old and idolizing musicians. Who did you idolize at that time?
I wanted very much to be Eddie Vedder.
Nice choice.
Yeah, Kurt Cobain, Eddie Vedder. That was my pantheon.
They're your pantheon, and I've read that you said that you always felt weird. I'm wondering if it goes back to that time, back to when you were a kid. Do you remember having a sense of how unique you were or how different you were at that age?
Well, I mean, first of all, I should say that I think every human being is creative. I think every human being is unique. So I don't want to, start patting myself on the back by any means. But I always felt like an outsider, even though I was able to pass kind of as a normal person. And I had friends and whatnot. I wasn't shoved into lockers. But yeah, I definitely remember being a kid and doing the old like sleepover with the soccer team kind of thing, and everybody else was listening to CNC Music Factory, and I was like, "You guys, there's this great band. They're called Jethro Tull. You gotta check it out." And I and I put on Aqualung for everybody, and they hated it. And then their revulsion to 70s prog rock that included a flute kind of grew to include me, and I could feel that. It's like, and then there's the part in Aqualung where it starts again. There's a pause and it starts again, and everybody got so mad they thought I had somehow like started the song over again to torture them more.
Oh gosh,
Yeah,
a childhood sleepover revolution.
yeah. I
Oh my
wasn't
goodness.
invited back to a lot of sleepovers, to be honest with you.
Who at that point who gave you a license to be weird? Who made it feel like it was okay?
I mean, I come from a good family. I mean, every family is kind of messed up in their ways, and I'm no exception to that. But my mom and my sisters were just always my mom just let us be who we are, who we were, who we're going to be, and encouraged that. So I feel really lucky. I know it's a gift, and not everybody has that luxury.
No kidding. It's a beautiful thing. One of the things I found so interesting when you won your Grammy is that you chose to write this really beautiful personal letter where you took us back to these early touring experiences. You started in 2007, and I think it was unprovoked. You didn't have to do that. You could have said, "Thank you so much for this Grammy. I appreciate it." But instead, you chose to give us this like great insight into your person, eating veggie subs on the highway and peeing in cups in dressing rooms and all that.
We still pee in cups.
Nice.
Yeah, that's still right, Tokes.
Is that a yes? It's just better that way, right? You just prefer it. You don't have
Hey.
to.
No, feral. We're feral.
Are you feral?
Yeah, totally feral.
How comfortable are you going down the feral rabbit hole as people? Like, do you just let yourself go wild on a tour like this?
I mean, it's a natural evolution. I mean, you spend enough time, you get on enough airplanes, and you do things to entertain yourself. And I'm lucky enough to get to travel with people I really adore, and we just get on and we have fun.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought because you said the word feral, and
sorry.
No, don't be sorry for throwing that in there.
Grammy acceptance speech letter.
Just the letter, yeah. Before we move on, I just want to know why you chose, out of your own free will, to give people such a great personal glimpse at your journey. What provoked you to do that?
Well, to be honest with you, I've been writing a lot of prose, just for my own edification, and I wanted to say thank you, but I also wanted to contextualize the Grammy in the scope of my career, my journey so far, which is that, I mean, I did start out in station wagons and then went to minivans and then went to 12-passenger vans, and I've done the whole gamut of things. I've played in pizza parlors and coffee shops and gigs that had 50 people in them, and so I just wanted to say I loved every inch of the way getting here, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. That's all.
It's beautiful, yeah. For people for whom you might have just popped onto the scene magically, it's nice to get a sense of that. There are those of us who've been following you all along and who know that kind of journey and the hustle and the struggle that's involved. And then for the mainstream who might have heard of you just for the first time with this record, it's nice to get a glimpse of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking about that, the fact that it hasn't been an overnight success story, it feels like you've been on the road ever since you were last here at Studio Q a few years ago. We certainly have that impression. Are you able to enjoy the ride still while touring so exhaustively?
I am. I really enjoy my life. I really, 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 really do.
What's the best part about it?
It's never boring. It's never boring. And I know that takes not just a constant change of scenery, but it also takes being actively engaged in your own life. I have wonderful people around. I get to play music for people almost every night, close to it, feels like. And just everything is an adventure. And I'm at a place in life where I get to really embrace that instead of shying away from it or being scared to exist or to live, because I've always had anxiety and fear has always been sort of my go-to emotion, but it kind of doesn't exist in the same form anymore.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, just a veil has been lifted. It's nice.
That's so fascinating. I think that's what people who have anxieties or fears pray for. And
yeah.
It would be neat if you knew what it was that did that for you. Do you think about that much?
I think that it just comes down to, this is going to get really like therapied and new agey and stuff.
It's cool. We can roll a couch out.
Let's
a
fainting couch.
Let's
I need a fainting couch and a corset.
We're here for you.
I need my therapy to be uncomfortable. Please.
Oh gosh. Well, I don't know if you want to go there. I'm wondering what makes that veil lift.
I think honestly, it's getting to do what you love and dig into it and stand behind something every night. Go, here's this thing I made. I believe in it. Maybe you'll believe in it too. That's really empowering. And then I think just a certain level of growing up and becoming okay in your own skin in ways that you never were before. That I certainly am. I feel great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What a gift. You certainly seem so. Does fear ever still creep in, or are there still things that you make you nervous out on the road or with your music life?
Not really out on the road. No, I mean, honestly, it's been the case that the more I do and the more opportunity I have to grow, just the less afraid I am of anything. Who cares?
So you released St. Vincent over a year ago. You've been playing these songs a lot for a long time. How have they evolved for you over time?
Gosh, they're just lived in. Like their collars are stretched out and I wouldn't say they're threadbare. They've taken on a new life with the show because the show is very choreographed and structured. So I don't just think about the songs in terms of the musicality and the way that we've, like I said, lived in them, but I also think about them in terms of a very visual narrative because I think about the movements that I do during them.
It's so tightly choreographed. It's so beautiful to look at. Is that something that you have in mind when you're writing this music? How is it going to look as an eventual presentation, or is that something that comes after?
In the case of this record, it came afterward, but I think that I will start to kind of incorporate the visual even earlier on the next go round.
Who choreographs it for you?
Oh, this one, I love her so much. Her name's Annie B. Parsons, and she runs the Big Dance Theater in New York City. And she works either with total novices like me. It should come as no surprise that I have no dance training. Or she works with people who are absolute masters of their craft, like Baryshnikov. So, she doesn't kind of deal with people in the middle who are bringing any baggage to movement or except there's so many schools of dance and, there's the modern thing that's more expressive and this and that. But she really likes to work with people who are kind of just discovering what they can do with their bodies or can do anything.
Yeah. Why is that more interesting, I wonder?
Well, I think it has to do with, as a choreographer, I would imagine, because a lot of her work is gestural and quite small and usually very abstracted from the source. Like in this particular show, we're referencing Roman statues and Pina Bausch doing the Rite of Spring and even moves that are Beyonce moves, but so slowed down to the point where they're totally unrecognizable. So it's movement, but it's not referencing. It's not like, okay, here's your Fosse move, and then you're going to go do your hip hop move or this or that, because I can't do that stuff. So she's very good at creating movement and suggesting movement that I can actually inhabit in my body.
And do you ever how do you communicate to her what you want something to look like, or do you say, here's an album, make me move?
I gave her the music. In some cases, like I said, there was the dialogue. Like I asked her to teach me how to fall because there are very specific ways to do it so you don't hurt yourself. And also for me, it was a challenge to not be afraid of falling and to be able to do it over and over and over again.
What did it feel like to dive into that and to let somebody teach you how to fall?
Well, at first it's scary. At first, your body tenses up and you have to do it very slowly, like anything, and kind of work up. But once you get it in your body, you can do it anytime and any place, which is a fun party trick if you ever need to spice up a potluck.
If you need to spice up a potluck, or if you're having an existential moment and you feel like you just need a fall, maybe.
It's very satisfying. It's a very satisfying feeling to fall.
Has it come in handy?
Well, I mean, on stage I do it a lot. But just to be able to know where, what your body's capable of.
Yeah, why is it so satisfying? What is it about the act of just...
Because you're submitting to gravity, but you're tricking it, and it looks very violent, but in fact you're in control of it. It's all those paradoxes that make things more interesting.
That hits on something so interesting. It looks very violent, but you're in control of it. You could say that listening to your music and watching the way you shred on guitar, but the incredible control that you have in your body and in your fingers when you do that. How do you manage that dichotomy?
I've been playing guitar forever. I've been playing guitar for 20 years now. So in a lot of ways, it's just instinctual. But again, what's more interesting to me is that level where you're good enough at something to where it looks effortless, making things that actually are really hard. Like, singing a line that's way up here and playing something that's totally unrelated rhythmically and melodically with your fingers. Like, that's hard. It's not easy to do, but when you do it right, it's musical. So that kind of stuff. It's just a product of having kind of ears that are bigger than my faculties.
Well, it seems like you stretch your faculties to match your ears.
That's the hope.
How do you get there? Is it the same way you get to Carnegie Hall? Is it practice?
Practice.
Yeah. Hey, all you kids out there, it's practice.
Yeah.
Annie Clark says so. And I want to talk about the aesthetic again for a moment, because it's such an important part of what you do. You're so beautiful, but you seem to me somebody who is not aware of that as a construct. It doesn't seem like you're trying. It seems like the aesthetics that you embody are more of an expression that just end up being incredibly beautiful. Are you aware of beauty at all?
I mean, I love beauty. I love it. This goes into a longer conversation, but, often I know that I, growing up, felt very alienated from myself and my body, and at times even the idea of being a woman. So it's sort of like a new thing for me to be a woman. That sounds kind of strange. I don't mean to. I'm not saying that I'm a transgendered person. Just that my relationship to gender is not as seamless as I think it is for some other people. Mm-hmm. So I certainly love beauty in art and nature and life and people. And I'm not without vanity, certainly, but I don't walk around my life feeling like I guess that archetypal woman thing. So, and not that that's the only way to be beautiful, but I feel a chasm between myself and that. So that's not my go-to. Does that make sense at all?
It makes sense to me. I guess what I want to know about more is the idea that there's a separation between your body and who you are. I mean, there's also a dichotomy that exists in you in the world between Annie Clark and St. Vincent. Is that where this sort of springs from, that sort of those two identities?
Well, I mean, realistically, from a biological level, I mean, we are our bodies. We are our brains. So I don't mean to suggest that there actually is a separation. But where one kind of slots into the factions of society or identity, which are all up for debate and discussion, and not at all stagnant, but that's all murky. I don't know where to go.
That's okay. We can sort that out.
Here.
We can rearrange.
It's a shell game
on the table.
like this.
Shell game. Okay. We're I guess talking about duality, and maybe separation is the wrong word to use. Then maybe it's that like disconnect or the need to feel more comfort in your skin. Is that maybe where the idea of that sort of split identity comes from for you?
Well, okay. On one level, the reason why I decided to go by a pseudonym originally was because I felt like if I went by my own name, which is a fine American name, I felt like it would actually signal to people that I played a certain kind of music. Typically, when people go by their own name, there's a sense of a hard on sleeve. Maybe it's acoustic, or maybe it's singer-songwriter.
Which is how I would describe you.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you. I'm playing at the Dunkin' Donuts on Bloor Street
Nice.
later.
The old coffee shop.
Yeah, the old coffee shop, which is not. I'm obviously I write songs, but I wanted to go by into the name because I felt like it would give me some psychic freedom, some space to fill and to create. And again, there's nothing wrong with the singer-songwriter archetype, but I wanted to sort of acknowledge the artifice in a way that going under my own name does not, or I felt I could not do.
That makes total sense. And at this point, you've lived with that pseudonym and kind of, I guess, let it splinter off as it did naturally from the name that you were given. At this point in your life and career, what's the difference between Annie Clark and St. Vincent?
I mean, at this point, really, the only difference is that, well, St. Vincent, I guess, goes up on stage in front of people and sings songs and climbs balconies and writhes around on the floor and falls and stage dives and does all the things that, the subconscious wills it to do, in the moment. And then it's weird talking about yourself in third person. It's really weird. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. But me, Annie Clark, I want to hang out with my nieces. I miss them right now. I want to see my family, and get a coffee. I don't know. This is not. I'm not putting this eloquently at all.
No,
but there is some sort of dichotomy, and I recognize it without it becoming an actually fraught divide. Mm-hmm. It's not a fraught divide.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like a beautiful thing that you have both spaces to live in, and that's wonderfully human. To want to see your nieces at some point, you got to want to hang up the St. Vincent cape and hop back into.
It's a literal cape, yeah.
A literal cape. Yeah. That's what it is, right? Well, I would be thrilled to chat with you all day, but we got to wrap things up. Okay. So I'm going to get you to play. You're going to play one more song for us here, Prince Johnny. Can you take me back to when you wrote that song and what was on your mind?
Yeah, Prince Johnny I wrote first as a lyric, which is, I've never really done that before. It's usually been symbiotic music and lyrics. But it was prose, a piece of prose. That was really, honestly, an homage to kind of a composite of a lot of New York characters that I know and love dearly, and specifically this downtown queer trans intelligentsia scene that I know and love. So it was an homage to that.
Great.
Late nights.
Let's dive into it. Annie, it's such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you head over to the jam space now.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.